Hey guys, this is Brandy, otherwise known as Mystery of Diamonds, and welcome to my channel. If you're new here, hey y'all! Okay, so I have on my woofy nails because I am working on my TSA, Treasure Studios Art, Wolf Captivary for the Wolfpack's Wolf Along. And I'm going to do a whip and chat. So this is going to be my very first Forensic Friday. So I kind of want to introduce a couple of things first. Is that one of my friends, GB Maltese, Grace of GB Maltese, she's actually started doing this really cool thing where she is going to be reading like some mystery stories and stuff like that. In fact, she just did one that was, I think it was like diamond painting with Edgar Allan Poe. Y'all, if you have not checked this out, you have got to check it out. I have that video is going to be linked into the description. So, and I kind of got my idea of, I already knew I was going to do forensics, okay, because I teach forensic science, and every Friday, which is what today is, I do a Forensic Files Friday with my kids, and so they know that we always watch a Forensic Files case. And so what I figured that I would do is on Fridays I would introduce a case, a forensic case, and just kind of tell you the details about the case, what they found, what evidence they found, what the results of the case were, and things like that. And then after I've gone through one of the forensic cases, then I'm going to read something that I do with my kids, which is a mini mystery. And so it's like this little story, and you're going to have to try to figure out who did it, who committed the crime. And so what you'll do is in the comments below, you'll tell me who you think actually committed the crime in the mini mystery. And of course, you can give me ideas for what else that you would like to see on Forensic Fridays. So I just kind of, to me, I love forensics and my kids love it. And so I just kind of figured that I wanted to do that with y'all. So the idea that I got from Grace was that what I'm going to do, this is my introductory part. And then I'm going to go into where you're going to see me diamond paint, but I'm going to do a voiceover so that I can actually concentrate on talking about the parts of the case, because there's some things I'm going to have to look at, as well as being able to read you the mini mystery. Now, I'm not exactly sure how long this whip and chat's going to be. It may not be very long. But I really hope that you enjoy it as much as I am going to enjoy showing this to you. So let's get to the whip and chat part. Okay, so this very first case that I thought I would start out with is the one that I actually start out with my kids, because it kind of sets up why we have this thing called the CSI effect. I'll tell you about that in a second, but this case is about Casey Anthony. And this is the story of where Casey Anthony is 25 years old, and she's accused of killing her 2-year-old daughter, Kaylee, and dumping her body near Orange County, Florida in 2008. So the thing that happened was that her mom had kind of got a little bit worried about her because she hadn't heard from Kaylee, from Casey or Kaylee, you know, hadn't heard or seen them in a while. And so she called 911 to be able to actually report Casey for stealing a vehicle and stealing money. And then she found out that Kaylee had actually been missing for 31 days, and Casey had not even reported anything. And Casey tried to say that she had left Kaylee with a nanny whose name was, and I'll probably say it wrong, Zenaida Fernandez Gonzalez. Because when her mom called the cops, they did find the car. And when her mom got in the car, she said she smelled like this overwhelming scent. And like literally it says it smells like there's been a dead body in this car. And so what happened was that Casey reported that she had left Kaylee with this nanny. And when they went to the apartment where supposedly this nanny lived, there was no nanny, or at least it had been vacant since like late February. It had been vacant for like quite a while. And Casey even stated that she was working at Universal Studios, but when they went there and checked, ends up that she had not been employed there for about 2 years. You know, so she lied about that part, and then she lied about the nanny and where the nanny lived. Now, the thing is that there was a lot of stuff that actually happened in this case forensically, and what they found and with the trial that was actually a lot of different surprises. They had all of this evidence, and they had expert witnesses or expert witness testimony. But the thing is that the prosecution had this same information, and then the defense would argue it backwards. So one of the things is that they found human hair in the trunk of Casey's car. Okay, and when they found the hair, it didn't have any of the root in it, and so in order to be able to get DNA evidence, like your actual DNA evidence, the root needs to be attached to the hair. You know, it's like where the hair's been pulled out and there's this little root on it. That's what actually has the DNA in it. So since they did not have that, to be able to determine if it was consistent with Kaylee's hair, they had to do this thing called mitochondrial DNA, which is not as good because what it does is it can only give you specifics, like it's similar but not with certainty, and they could only really link it to the maternal side. Okay, so in other words, they're saying that it could have been anywhere, or it could have been any of I think it was like 5 different people. And so because those people were related to Kaylee on the mother's side, and so that's what would have allowed the hair to still possibly to have come from them. So they could not definitively say this hair specifically is Kaylee's that's in the trunk. Another thing that they found was that on the hair, the FBI lab analyzed it, and they said that they found characteristics in the hair of what would amount to decomposition. Now, the thing is that there was these dark bands near the base of the hair. And so one expert, the expert that the prosecution had, stated that it indicated that there was a decomposing body attached to that head. But the defense pulled in another guy, and he was like, no, that can also be caused by air pockets. So you see, now the jury is listening to 2 different experts with varying information. Okay, so kind of keep that in mind, because that's going to play an important part a little bit later on. Another thing that they found was they used this, and it was brand new at the time, a decomposition detector. In other words, they had this brand new like odor analysis that had come out, and supposedly it was supposed to be able to test the air inside the trunk and to be able to see what type of chemicals that were in there, because there are certain chemicals that are associated with decomposition, with the body decomposing. And so the problem is, and this is one of the problems that you have with new types of tests to specifically say what type of evidence that you have or how important that evidence is when it's brand new. It hasn't gone through like this trial and error, and so it has not been what they consider scientifically accepted, I guess you could say. So they call it controversial. Sorry, I know I can speak. And so the thing is that when they're using brand new technology or new tests, here in Florida, which is where this case was in Florida, we have what's called the Fry standard. And that means that in order for it to be used, then it needs to have met certain standards. Okay? In other words, it had to have been scientifically accepted into the scientific community. And at the time that this happened, that particular test was not accepted by the scientific community yet, because it was brand new. Now, a lot of judges, in most parts, when they don't want anything to happen to the case, they won't admit a test or evidence like that to be used, because they don't want it to be refuted and said, you know, look, this is not even scientifically plausible, because then you're giving jurors this whole little idea of, oh, well, look, you know, their witness doesn't seem to know what they're saying, kind of thing. It's not even accepted in the community. And so there was a big problem with the judge even allowing that to be put into the trial. And so that's one of the problems, because the defense, they jumped on that and they're like, no, this is not accepted according to the Fry standard. This is not accepted. You know, they didn't call it, in fact, they literally stated it's not junk science, but it never should have been brought into the courtroom at this stage, because it was just too early in its infancy. Another thing that they had was that they had, through some of this, when they were doing this, they did find evidence of chloroform vapors, as well as chloroform like kind of within the carpet of the trunk. But now the amount of chloroform that was found in the trunk, as far as odor wise, they were saying, or at least the prosecution was trying to say, that, you know, hey, look, this proves, because when the body decomposes, you know, some of chloroform comes out. But guess what? Chloroform can also be found in cleaning products. And so, therefore, once again, you don't have a definitive, yes, this is what was in there. This is what is part of saying that Kaylee's body was in this trunk and it was decomposing and it was giving off this. Or even that they used chloroform to incapacitate Kaylee to put her into the trunk. So that was one of the things that was also disputed, because that was going right along with using that odor detector technique that they were using. The other compounds that they found when they were using a chromatography mass spectrometer, it's this machine that looks at varying chemicals and the amounts of chemicals that you have within certain gases, or I mean what gases you have and what chemicals that they are. And when they did, they found 67% of it was associated with human decomposition. I mean, like, come on, that seems like an awful lot, you know. But and chloroform was the largest one. But, you know, when you've got the other team going, listen, you have, and they started listing off all these things that have chloroform in them that could be acceptable within the trunk. Another thing that they had was that there was garbage, okay, like with food garbage and stuff like that, things that could be decomposing themselves that are not Kaylee's body. Which, guess what? Those things are also going to give off some of the same compounds. And so, you know, once again, the defense was able to say, hey, look, you know, there was this trash that was in the car. Couldn't it have come just from that as well? So the prosecution had another little hurdle. They also found insect activity. But now I will tell you about this. First, they eventually, what happened is that they had been investigating the mom, and then eventually Kaylee's body was discovered. She was discovered in an area that was actually not too far from the home, in this wooded area. And when they found her, you know, it'd been, you know, you're talking over 31 days, okay? And So the body obviously had broken down, and they couldn't find every single piece, because when they're out in the woods, you do have animals and things that will scavenge and cart off and things like that. And so they weren't able to find everything, but they did find Kaylee's little skull. And they found that there was duct tape that was attached to Kaylee's skull. And so the prosecution was trying to state that the duct tape was used to cover Kaylee's mouth and nose, and that she suffocated. Okay, because there weren't any other kind of injuries that they could find that would have suggested that. So they were using the duct tape, saying that, this was used as like a murder weapon, essentially, because if she suffocated and that's how she died, then that was considered the murder weapon. But once again, they couldn't find anything within the house or the car to match with the duct tape, because a lot of times they can take like the edge of the duct tape and match it to the edge of like duct tape that might be found in the house or the car, but they didn't find any of that. So they couldn't actually use that. They also did find insects within the trunk as well that usually show up when you have something dead and dying and decomposing, because one of the things about entomology, which is being able to study the insects with the death scene or with deaths, is to be able to try to maybe help determine time of death. Especially since you're talking about something being found so late after the game, so far down that they, wanted to try to see if they could find something to help them with time of death. But once again, you're talking about that these insects come when there is something that is dead and decomposing. Well, if you have trash with food and stuff like that, well, believe it or not, that stuff decomposes and insects are drawn to those as well. So once again, the defense came through and said, nope, look, see, here's another way to explain it. That this insect wasn't necessarily because a dead body was in the trunk. So every time that the prosecution came up with something, boom, the defense came right along and put up another argument. So then they had another one where they had some cyber evidence. They looked at Casey's computer. They actually found where Casey's computer had been searching, someone on Casey's computer had been searching chloroform and self-defense. Now, the defense first started stating, look, it could have been anybody, but you're talking about someone's personal computer. Like, who else was there that would have done this? Who else could have put in these searches? Well, then her mother, who, by the way, was the one who got the cops after in the first place, was so upset, because Kaylee had been supposedly missing for 31 days and nobody had reported it, including her mother, who'd been out partying, by the way. They found out later that while her daughter was missing, she was seen partying and having a good time. And everybody, no one was concerned. Where's the child? Where's the child? So, yeah, I thought that was kind of strange. So, anyway, the mother who reported her in the first place then goes on and says, oh, I'm the one that put those things in the search engine. And she gave, like, these dates and times. But when they checked the dates and time that the stuff was supposedly looked up, it did not match what the mother was saying. So the mother was, I guess, trying to take some of the blame off of her daughter. I don't know. I guess as this started going on, she started recanting some of the stuff that she had said earlier. And I think she was just trying to get her daughter into a better position, I guess. But I mean, like I said, her defense lawyers were coming left and right, left and right. And one of the other reasons why, using new technology or new tests is because if she would have been convicted, which we'll get to what she actually happened to her, if she would have been convicted, then she could have actually put in for an acquittal based off of that evidence. Now, what ended up happening is you had a jury, and it took 33 days of testimony, and the jury is listening to all this. They're seeing every time that the prosecution comes up with something, the defense knocks it down. Now, I mean, this normally happens in court cases, but man, it was every solid single piece of evidence, what we call circumstantial evidence, that, because it could not definitively say, yes, this definitively is Kaylee's. This definitively, this definitely links Casey's car and Kaylee into the trunk. We called this case one that's called using the CSI effect because, in today's society, and even back then, I mean, you're only talking about in 2008, okay? CSI was a very popular TV show, still continues to be, even though it's not newly running anymore. But a lot of people watch forensic things on TV now. CSI, NCIS, so many, Criminal Minds, so many that are out there. And, on a TV show, the investigators are the ones that run the evidence through everything. Well, guess what? They're not. They actually do, in reality, have labs that do that. They can get theirs done lickety-split, where it takes sometimes months in reality, to get information back from these lab tests. And, of course, what do they always have? They always have some piece of evidence like DNA that definitively, or they say, definitively links. This is pure, it's like smoking gun. Put this person in this place. So people, your standard person who's going to be on a jury is so used to seeing this that they're expecting this smoking gun. They're expecting this, hey, this is the person who killed her. This links it, absolutely 100%. And because the prosecution could not give them absolute definites, they ended up finding her not guilty of first-degree murder. They did not find her guilty for aggravated child abuse or aggravated manslaughter of a child. The only thing that she got convicted of, she was found guilty for 4 counts of false information in a criminal investigation and check forgery. She eventually also had a defamation suit. That nanny that she tried to pin it on to start with? Yeah, that nanny sued her. And then she also had to pay for the cost that it cost her lying to law enforcement, as well as all the money that they used to search for Kaylee, because, they searched for a very long time and they finally found her. So she ended up paying something like $217,000. But once again, free and clear. And she ended up having time served after a short amount of time. I believe that she got out in, I want to say 2011. And now, what makes this case actually important, that something good did come out of this case. One of the good things that came out of this case is that because of how long she took to report her child missing, 31 days, there is now in several states where they call it Kaylee's Law, that failure to report a missing child in some states is now a felony. So there's actually some good things that came out of that case. Okay, so that is the case that I wanted to go over. So are you guys ready for the mini mystery? The one where you guys get to hear the story and you get to try to tell me who you think did it. I'm excited. Okay, so here we go. Are you ready? Now, this one is called The Unresolved Murder. Henry Alfonso disappeared from Albuquerque after the mysterious poisoning of his wife 3 years ago, said the aging former matinee idol Ronald Stork as he stood before the TV camera, the picturesque Hollywood reservoir, sycamore, and pepper trees to his rear. "Cut!" yelled 25-year-old director Dick Dearhart. "We're losing the sun! Need some fill! Take 5, Mr. Stork." The TV show Unresolved Murders was often shot here only 2 miles from its Burbank home offices. The Hollywood Hills passed for Kansas and Idaho, the Rockies and Upper New York State, and the travel time saved a bundle. Producer George Mongrove, 32, was always watching the bottom line. 3 days ago, Furious that Stork had threatened to walk if his salary wasn't tripled, the aggressive Mangrove had threatened to replace him with a younger host. Stork said in that case, he'd start up his own show to compete with this one. Today, in front of the crew, they were both pretending the argument had never happened and were chatting amiably about their golf scores when this beautiful 19-year-old caterer, Patty Landers, arrived with a tray of sandwiches. Stork almost threw up at the thought and waved her off. At least, she thought as she walked away, he isn't hitting on me for a change. Mangrove's writing and producing partner, 30-year-old pathologically nurturing Teresa Carson, walked up to Stork, who was sweating profusely. You sure you're all right? Makeup man Bert Camford was mopping Stork's beaded brow. You could use a little more pancake, Mr. Stork. The mild-mannered Camford touched up the pancake as Stork turned to Teresa. I'm great, said Stork, not wanting her to know he was experiencing a burning, tingling sensation, nausea and numbness in his tongue. They could use his illness to break his contract. Those megavitamins you gave me are really working. He stopped himself from falling. Better reattach my piece, Bert, he said. I don't know why, but it isn't holding very well today. No problem, the makeup man replied. He added a touch more adhesive under the hairpiece. You don't look so well, said Teresa. She touched her star's hand, and it was cold to the touch. Teresa went to the coffee cart, poured hot water into a ceramic mug with Stork's name on it that Patty always kept handy and clean, took a homemade tea bag from her purse, plopped it into the water along with some honey, stirred, and took the concoction back to Stork. Try some of this, juniper tea, my mother's recipe. It'll perk you right up. Stork sipped on the drink and grimaced at the unexpectedly sharp tang. Does it have almonds in it? He asked. Must be the juniper berries, Teresa replied. Too hot, Mr. Stork? Asked ambitious 21-year-old production assistant Keith Quintero. I'll put in some cold water. Keith took the mug briefly to the coffee wagon. Stork downed the liquid, but his nausea only worsened. Ready, shouted Director Dearhart. Stork resumed his pose. Roll, said the director. The camera rolled. Speed, yelled the sound mixer. Action, yelled the director. Henry Alfonso was the much-beloved science teacher and drama coach at Kennedy High, read Stork, right off the cue cards being held up by Keith Quintero next to the camera. Keith, having overheard the argument earlier in the week between Mangrove and Stork, went up to Mangrove the next morning and proposed that if Stork leaves, he should take over as host. He gave Mangrove a demo video he'd prepared at home. Mangrove wanted to laugh in the brash kid's face, but he knew he didn't dare. There, Alfonso and his students won awards, said Stork to the camera, for their theatrical productions, including a much-lauded Cyrano, in which Alfonso played the title character and a live adaptation of Star Trek, The Beginnings. 2 days after Alfonso's wife's mysterious death, both he and a beautiful 16-year-old female student named Greta Phillips dropped out of sight. It is assumed the teacher and his underage student were lovers. For 3 years, the police have found no direct link between the murder and the disappearances, but now, I'm sorry, cut, yelled the director Dearhart as the sun fast sank behind a cloud. Shoot, muttered a disgusted Mangrove, thinking of the budget overages. Don't worry so much, whispered perky Teresa into his ear. Everything's under control. That's the moment Ronald Stork folded up and dropped to the hard Hollywood Hills ground. Teresa, who had passed her first aid class with flying colors, ran to his rescue. He's not breathing, she shouted. Give me room. She gave him mouth to mouth while the crew gathered round. After 10 minutes, the paramedics arrived. What are his chances? Asked Teresa while trying to catch her breath. The lead paramedic shook his head. 0 to none, he muttered. Ronald Stork is dead. Oh, my goodness, Teresa cried. Her partner, Mangrove, hid his combination guilt and relief. Only Keith Quintero uttered a small wow, as the ambulance pulled away. Now here's some clues that might help you a little bit. Teresa's statement to the police was, we're a very tight-knit little group. George and Ronald and I were all here from the beginning 7 years ago. Most of the crew have worked for us off and on for years. Dick Dearhart and Bert have been here for almost 3 years. Patty a little less. All very reliable. Team players. The only recent hire is Keith, and he's the son of the network vice president in charge of the show. The second clue are the autopsy reports, or results. The deceased stomach contained partially digested donut and coffee and undigested juniper berry juice and honey, but no traces of poison of any traceable sort. However, later tests made on samples of Stork's blood turned up a lethal dose of Anconium napellus, a poisonous plant also known as monkshood. In this case, the variety called yellow monkshood, or A. lucens, is found in mountainous areas of the western United States, but no punctures or cuts were found on the body. And then a network press release said, due to the sudden and untimely demise of award-winning beloved actor and TV host Ronald Stork, the TV series Unresolved Murders will go on hiatus for the next 3 weeks. The slot will be filled with special programs until the series can return with a new host. There is no truth to the rumor that Congressman Sonny Bono has been hired to replace Mr. Stork. Now, who do you think killed Ronald Stork? Do you think it was Director Dearhart? Do you think it was Captain Eugene Batts? Do you think it was Bert Camford, who might also be known as Harry Alfonso? Are you not sure? What do you think was the method? Why do you think he was killed? So I hope you've got a little taste of this mystery, and maybe you can tell me who you think killed him. All right. Thank you so much. Now, back to your regularly scheduled show. Okay, well, I really hope that y'all enjoyed that forensic files, or not forensic files, but that forensics case. And I hope that, if you did like this video, that you give it a thumbs up down below. And if you haven't subscribed to my channel, I would love for you to subscribe to the channel and become part of the Diamonds family. Come on down. All right, well, I'm going to leave you like I always do. I got to move this to do that. Reach for the stars. Grab hold. Hold on. And never let go. Until my next video. Bye, guys.